We stand on the shoulders of giants, and it helps us to see the human parade just a little bit better. Normally, I don't tell my geek friends that I write poetry, and normally I don't tell my poetry friends that I write geek. But tonight I have no choice because this is a crossover piece. Back in 1975, I wrote a crossover piece called ICs in Testingland. A Testingland is an analogy of Lewis Carroll's Wonderland. An IC is an integrated circuit. This was a very early day for this kind of thing. And I wound up doing a film based on this crossover at KQED, and then showing it to various geek audiences. It was a 72-minute film, more than you ever wanted to know about the testing of integrated circuits, told to you in a Lewis Carroll format. And so I very proudly ripped off Lewis Carroll, and then I very proudly ripped off Shakespeare for some of the pieces. Oh, I should mention, this is George. I didn't have an Alice, I had a George who was a test engineer, and he went to Testingland, which was divided into logic and memory and microprocessor lands, and he meets the microprocessor and the Cheshire Cat, and each of them got their own speech. The IC got one called Put Money in Your Purse, where I ripped off Shakespeare's similar soliloquy from Othello, and the Cheshire Cat got a speech about the rabbits that was echoing of John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men speech.
Steinbeck.
Steinbeck, that's what I meant to say. Steinbeck, yes. And this is the Dormouse, Raymond Vittorio, who played a beautiful job, and he got the Twinkle Twinkle Microcircuit speech. It was a Twinkle Twinkle Microcircuit, how I wonder if you work it. Pulses running through my system, do you catch or do you miss them? Twinkle Twinkle Microcircuit, how I wonder if you work it.
Nicely done.
They meet the Tweedle Twins, which are Tweedledut and KGD, that's device under test and known good device. And they didn't have a soliloquy because they were comic relief. Then you meet the Mad Pattern Generator, who you can pretty much guess was very much like the Mad Hatter in Lewis Carroll. And he has his own speech. He has a speech called He is the Cause, meaning bugs, and it ripped off the It is the Cause speech from Othello. And then you have Jan, the military man, who does military testing, and the Go No Go player, who had many Confucius-like sayings that I don't have time to get into here. And then you have finally George, who opens ICs in Testingland with a speech which is my own creation following a form of Shakespeare. It's called To Test or Not to Test. Oh, that this too complex chip would partition itself into recognizable blocks, or that all its gates and wires would combine themselves into an introspective voltage upon a single pin. What a single pin that line would feed, that all the chip's logic and memory, and yes, even the function of intelligence itself, would diagnose itself and reduce its decision to a simple 1 or 0 on an output line. But no, a chip tests not itself, but by incoming inspection. These dreams of self-testing ICs are for some better time, some future generation where chip area is not so intensely fought for. To test or not to test, That is the question. Whether it is cheaper in the end to pay the QC department outrageous fortunes, or to seek out functional patterns within a sea of complexity, and by so stimulating, test them. To stimulate, to compare, perchance to overlook. Ah, there's the bug. For in those complex instructions, who is to say which interrupted pattern sequences will bear the name worst case? Indeed, how can I say that any pattern is worst case so long as untested possibilities outnumber the tested ones, like the stars outnumber the trees? In thought, this is a machine of ones and zeros, but in reality, those high and low voltages depend upon such subtle physical interactions as would turn the mind of Einstein awry, giving pause to his labors. A whisker of metal, the influence of a neighboring sub-circuit, or some particular set of timing delays, these and what far more subtle factors I know not, can turn a good circuit into a malfunctioning monster. And with that, we transition into Testingland.